Did you ever wonder, why are poor people fat? Well, stop it, because that's not very nice. I have watched many videos on the working poor and poverty and food insecurity and people relying on food banks. And a lot of times, if a family is featured who has fallen on hard times and they don't have a lot of money, you might see some overweight people, right, involved. And then you have all these comments about, wow, well, she doesn't look very underfed. You know what? That's mean, so just stop that. But still, why are people in America who are poor sometimes really overweight? Okay, well, it's not that hard to figure out. And it's not that I've done a huge study on this. These are just my thoughts on it. But poor food is fattening food. So there you go. I found that when I was spending a lot more on groceries, I was buying a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, and I was just shoveling salads down my gullet every day, and that kept my weight pretty stable and not gaining weight. Then when I went on a really tight budget, I found myself putting on weight. That's interesting. Spending much less on food, but gaining weight. Okay, so why? That's what you really need to know. Why? Why are poor people fat? Why, when you're on a lower budget, are you gaining weight? Because the kind of food you can afford is not fresh fruits and vegetables. You're not filling up just on salads that are basically like a freebie, if you ask Weight Watchers. Like anybody else, poor people do like to eat, right? Everybody likes to eat. Don't pretend you don't like to eat. Don't pretend that you don't eat when you're stressed out. Everybody does. And when you're poor, there's plenty of stuff to be stressed out about. You have relationship problems. You might have health problems. You have to clean your house. Your kids are misbehaving or driving you crazy. Or you have a teenager who's giving you attitude. Or you have people at work you don't get along with. Well, add to that the fact that you have a low-paying job, if you have a job at all, or you have a minimum wage job that isn't enough to support you and your family. All right, there's a lot of stress to that. There's a lot of anxiety when you're not sure if you can pay your rent the next month or put food on the table, right? When you know you don't have food security, you might opt for higher calorie foods. I mean, isn't that kind of a survival mechanism? Like, okay, on certain times ahead, let's get in as much food as we can, because who knows when the next meal is coming. I got 15 packs of ramen noodles for $1 when they were on sale. I got 60 packages of ramen noodles in my pantry. That is some classic, cheap, poor person food, and that stuff is so fattening. I can't figure out why this little pack of noodles has so many calories. I know the noodles are fried, but for God's sake, it's like 700 calories, and those packs are not as big as they used to be. I swear they were bigger when I was a teenager. That's not a lot of noodles. One pack of ramen is barely a meal for one person, if you ask me. It doesn't fill me up. The food that poor people have access to and can afford tends to be really fattening. There you go. There's your simple answer. It's not because they're stupid. It's not because they're just a bunch of lazy assholes sitting around just filling their gobs with junk food. It's what they can afford. Not that they have less willpower than everybody else. I mean, I've noticed people with money are fat too, right? As well, I think there are certain cultural factors. I mean, there are definitely cultural factors in the foods you choose to eat. Right? So if you look at poverty as a generational, cyclical problem, there's a lot of reasons why families stay in poverty. It has to do with education and expectations and cultural collateral and all sorts of things. So if you come from a culture of poverty, then the foods of that culture might not tend to be your fresh, crispy, low-cal salads, right? They're going to be the foods that give you the calories you need to survive and the calories that you need to feed a body that may be doing a lot of manual labor, right? So culturally, you might have some really fattening foods that you don't necessarily need now that you're not expending a lot of calories doing physical labor all day long. Just a thought there. So quit making mean comments about poor people looking well fed, like that they should actually look like they're starving to death. The food that they have access to tends to be overprocessed, cheap, fattening foods. You're going to have your overprocessed carbs. You're going to have your corn syrup. You're going to have your heart unhealthy oils. So the question really shouldn't be, why are poor people fat? It should be, what can we do about that? How are we going to bring fresh, affordable produce into poor neighborhoods? And tons of food gets wasted and thrown away in America. Farmers will tell you so much of what they produce just gets thrown away because the grocery stores don't find it acceptable. You know, a tomato has to be like this perfectly red, perfectly round, has to look perfect for the customer to want to buy it. Doesn't matter how crappy the tomato tastes, it has to look beautiful. So all the good tasting tomatoes that look kind of like messed up, they get thrown away, right? Well, that's screwed up. That's a screwed up system. And all those wasted fruits and vegetables should be making their way to low-income people who need that nutrition. That's what our society should be looking at. That's what we should be working on, not asking, why are poor people fat? Not blaming them, not criticizing them, not saying, well, I'm not going to help them or address the issue because they're well fed. Look how fat they are. They can afford to lose a few calories here and there. It's not the question we should be asking. As a society, we should be saying, okay, here's this phenomenon. How are we going to fix this? There's food to go around in America. There's plenty of food, right? If 40 billion tons or whatever of food are being thrown away every year, there's got to be a way to get the wasted produce to people who need it.